welcome to Settling Scores, the musical theater podcast. We're your hosts, Stephanie Dillard.
Hey, I'm Lenny West.
And I'm Forrest Hutchinson.
And we're so glad you tuned in to hear us bicker and banter about all things Broadway.
Talk to me, baby, won't you talk to me?
And that song signals it's time for a catch-up convo, where we discuss any shows we've seen recently and any Broadway news we have to share. Lenny, you want to go first?
Sure. So, Broadway news to share. This is exciting in the vein of like the greatest living musical theater composer. So, Adam Guettle's Days of Wine and Roses with Kelly O'Hara and Brian Darcy James is indeed coming to Broadway, which I'm so excited about because that means we're going to get a recording, which means all the good things.
Yes.
So, I'm super excited about that.
We manifested that.
Yes, we did. Although, speaking of new recordings, there was also something I was super excited about that maybe didn't turn out as well as I hoped. A new recording of Oklahoma,
Womp womp.
which is my favorite show. Spoiler alert.
I didn't know that about you.
Yes, Oklahoma is my favorite show of all time.
Color me surprised.
We'll get into it at a certain point. Yeah, but
can't
it's
wait.
my favorite. Shut up for me. So the recording is notable because it is the first complete recording of the show, which has all the dance music, all the reprises, all the scene change music.
That was
Wow,
my
the
favorite
underscores,
A lot.
everything.
It's yeah.
Jeez.
I will say the leads, Nathaniel Hackman sings Curly and Sierra Boggess sings Lori, are phenomenally good. The rest of listen once and maybe put it to the side.
Sure.
But it is great to, after 80-ish years, have a full recording of a show from 1943.
It's time.
Yes, and then the third thing, just for funsies, being that it is getting into the Halloween season, and we're talking about demon barbers today, I also saw a little opera a week or so ago about demon clowns. God love Pagliacci. We have to expand our horizons out of musical theater.
Why
We've got
not?
opera. We've got actual plays that are fantastic that we're trying to bring Forrest into. But yeah, and so 'tis the season, right? Demon barbers, demon clowns.
It works.
And that was with the Nashville Opera, by the way. Who I've just recently gotten into operas. It's kind of something I never thought I would enjoy, but being in the room rather than just listening to the recording, it's a whole different experience and something I've found that I'm absolutely loving.
They do great work. I've
They
sung in
do,
their chorus
yeah.
a couple of times and really enjoyed it.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Love
they
it.
do. They do good work.
Yep.
All right, Forrest, you're up.
Let's see, I haven't seen any shows recently. We wrapped up Oliver, so I'm free now on weekends to see shows. This week I'm going to see the great Stephanie in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm so excited for that.
Thank
Stephanie
you.
in that leading lady role in the play.
Nurse
It's so
Ratched.
exciting. So that's a pull tight. And then this kind of has to do with what I've been listening to, but this Saturday we're going to see Belmont University do the musical Working.
Oh, yeah.
The one that Stephen Schwartz put together. Several composers wrote it. But I had listened to the original cast album, but there was a newer one, I think it's 2017, 2018, that Lin-Manuel Miranda helped write 2 new songs for,
cool.
write lyrics for some of the new songs. And so I've been listening to that cast recording. It's pretty good. Doesn't compare to the original. Doesn't have the life or the flavor that the original has. Doesn't have
Really?
that very 70s vibe. But they cut a lot of songs, several songs, which I kind of appreciated. Kind of moves a little faster. So good recording. Not great. Doesn't surpass the original, I'd say. Also recently consumed the 1993 revival of She Loves Me. Which, little spoiler alert, maybe for later. But but that has been an excellent recording. Judy Kuhn definitely stands out in that recording. Crystal clear voice. Maybe potentially one of my favorite recording of She Loves Me. We'll see. I got to give it some time to settle in, but a great recording, I'd say.
I'll have to check it out. Haven't heard that one.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's quite good. Although I don't believe that's Judy Kuhn on the recording.
Is it not? Mm-mm. Who is it?
No, it's her name is Diane Fratantoni.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Wait, wasn't she in that revival
Judy
though?
Kuhn was in the revival. Yes.
What does that mean? Because I've seen videos of it, right?
Was she
Yes, you
Alana?
have.
Wow.
What?
Which character did she play?
Amalia, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So no,
well-
she was in. I think it was. I don't have all my research done, but we need to do that. But I believe that
We'll
she
get to
was.
it next time. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah,
find
we are-
out. You're gonna. That's a little teaser
That's
for
a
next time.
spoiler alert as we're
Thank you,
doing
Lenny.
She Loves Me
Okay,
next time.
Lenny's got me
Yeah.
doing some research. Okay,
Yep.
I love that. Okay, Stephanie, what's up with you?
So I wanted to talk about, drumroll please, Stephen Sondheim's final musical. Here we are. It just
Ooh, yes,
made
yes,
its
yes.
world premiere
Yes.
on September 28th. It began its run at the Sheds Griffin Theater off Broadway. which I think that's interesting. I want to talk about that in a second.
Sure.
And it'll officially open on October 22nd. It's going to have an extended limited run continuing through January 7th of next year. I think it's interesting that Here We Are is going to the Shed and is not doing a cold open straight to Broadway, which seems like
I think
that
there's a
would be
reason.
the normal thing. But,
Yeah.
you know, the creative team obviously wants to work out the material in front of a smaller audience before putting it up for the big guns, the Tony contention. But I'm sure that's the eventual goal for producer Tom Kirdahy. He's the one who took the final Candor and Ebb to Broadway in 2015. The Visit.
The Visit.
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Joe Mantello is the directing. He did Wicked, Assassins. Rounding out the credits, we've got David Ives did the book. And, of course, music and lyrics are by
They got a good little cast, too, for that
amazing
show.
Sondheim. They do. David Hyde Pierce, I love you.
Yeah, it's stupid.
This new 2-act Sondheim musical was originally called Square One, and it's been in the works since at least 2014. It was developed by the Public Theater in 2016. Back in 2021, the New York Times reported that Sondheim and Ives had abandoned it entirely. But no. Sondheim died in 2021, but reportedly sanctioned a staging of the musical and considered the work complete. Although, another drum roll, Cameron McIntosh, good friends with Sondheim,
Right.
revealed that Sondheim had played the entire score over the phone to him on the Sunday before he passed away.
Stop it.
And in his
Love that man.
estimation, again, just Cameron's estimation, the musical was only 50 to 60% finished. They haven't brought in another composer.
I'm very skeptical about this show.
I'm really wondering. I'm hopeful but skeptical.
And I've read reviews, and I hear the first act, very nice. Second act, very light on music.
was
Is what
surprised.
I've heard. Okay.
One song in the second act is
Oh, dear.
maybe what I
Something
read.
like 1 or 2 songs is what I've heard, which is, so very skeptical. Maybe that's why they're doing it off Broadway, just to give it a try and see if there's any reception
massage it
towards
into something good. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm worried.
I don't know.
I'm worried but excited. I mean, I'm going to
I mean, it's
go
fun.
see
It's
it.
obviously fun anytime to hear his music and his lyrics,
Absolutely.
right?
And I would just
I'm
love
not
to
gonna be
hear
mad.
his last unadulterated
Of course, right.
work. I mean, I'm
Yep.
kind of glad they're not like polluting it with another composer. I'm just
No, please God, no.
Yeah, and it's the third major Sondheim production to be running concurrently in New York City. Sweeney
Awesome.
Todd, and of course Merrily, which is now in previews,
Yes.
Yeah, it's
opening at the
exciting.
Hudson October 10. And
Yep,
that
yep,
is all we have
Great.
for our catch-up convo. Now we're going to move on to our quick fire quiz.
Ugh.
That sound means we've now come to the part of our show where I present a musical theater quiz for Forrest and Lenny, and of course you, our listeners at home, to answer with absolutely no preparation whatsoever. Although they kind of knew, since it's October, it's kind of going to be Halloween-y. It's early October now, and as we head into the Halloween season, here's a little quickfire quiz to test your knowledge of Broadway's most haunting shows. So prepare yourself for the musically mysterious and tunefully terrifying, and maybe you'll be able to scare up a win against your opponent. Oh, the eye rolls in the
I
room.
love it so
I
much.
lost your eyeballs for like a whole 30 seconds. That was awesome. To make it more challenging, these clues are going to be told from the perspective of a secondary character in the show.
okay.
I can't make it too easy on you guys.
Come on.
You both have your bells at the ready.
Yep.
First one to ring in gets to answer first. If that person is wrong, their opponent gets a chance to steal. Number 1. A life coach tries to settle into her new family, only to be terrorized by her fiance's daughter and her ghost friends. Forrest.
Beetlejuice.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
The hint was going to be the subtitle is The Musical, The Musical, The Musical.
I did not know that was the subtitle, but that's awesome.
Isn't that fun? Number 2, a seasoned opera singer complains about an increase in workplace safety violations and is replaced, yes.
The Phantom of the Opera.
Of course, she's replaced by a younger rival with an influential
Okay,
coach.
nice.
And my hint was the word opera is in the clue.
Nice.
I didn't think you would need that one, but
Yeah,
just in
okay.
case. Number 3,
Love that.
a university headmistress tries to maintain order in her school despite the efforts of 2 mismatched roommates.
Wicked.
Yes,
Oh,
very good, Lenny.
nice. No.
Snap.
I was thinking about horror. That's not. Well, it does have
that
a
one
witch.
kind of
It does
didn't
have a
fit
witch
in.
in it.
Yeah,
So you
I know
got
that
it.
one was borderline.
That's my bad. I
It's
should have
not
been
really
thinking
outside the
scary,
box.
but
Okay.
yeah. She's green.
Fair enough.
Number 4. A homeless woman tirelessly tries to bring down a heartless, sadistic baker. Pies are involved, but no, it's not waitress. Lenny.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd,
but
yes. Forrest. Oh, man.
I'm like thinking of all the obscure shows. Like, oh, the
you
one
are
we're doing
smashing
today.
him, Lenny. My goodness. Number 5, a hunchbacked handyman / live-in butler and his sister lead a rebellion and end up killing 3 characters before fleeing in a spaceship. Lenny again.
The Rocky Horror Show.
Rocky Horror. I'm
okay,
sorry,
okay.
Forrest.
Yeah,
Forrest
that's
is not really familiar with that one, but I had to include it.
Was it 4-1? Do you have enough for me to come back in this one? Okay.
We got 10 total, so but one of them is
okay.
only for Lenny, so yeah, you're kind of screwed.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Number 6. A devout mother suffers a heart attack after stabbing her rebellious daughter.
Carrie.
Carrie. Hint was, this show is buckets and buckets of bloody good fun. Yeah. Number 7. A grouchy shop owner finds fame, fortune, and an adopted son before suffering a floral finish
I think I got
of his
that.
forest. Yeah.
Little Shop of Horrors.
That's exactly right. Hint was, at the end of his life, he could suddenly see more of a certain plant from the inside. Yuck. I have so much fun writing these, if you can't tell. Number 8. A hooker with a heart of gold has her throat slit while just trying to find a little sympathy and tenderness. Forrest.
That's Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes, that's right.
Nice clues.
Thank you. Number 9. A psychic is driven crazy by a rendition of 10,000 bottles of beer on the wall, and she eventually allows herself to be possessed. Lenny.
Ghost.
Yes, that's
I
right.
would not have
That's
guessed that. I hate
right.
ghosts, so.
Number 10. Just for Lenny, since he finds this show so very horrifying. An anvil salesman is tired of his rival's melodious shenanigans. No white knight is coming to help you with this question, Lenny.
Oh, the music, man.
I have to put it in every show now.
The
that's
horrors
it.
of classic musical theater, you know.
Just that show in particular, man.
Just that song. Oh, My White Knight. It could be 3 whole steps slower.
guys,
and still
we're
be
gonna
tortured
do
like a cat screeching in the
We're
night.
gonna do the music,
Oh.
man. I have to defend this great American classic
Bring
from
it
you all
on.
trying to disparage it.
I can get behind the trouble in River City. That's pretty
Yes.
fun. I like
That's
that
about the only one.
Yeah, I'm with you, Lenny. Sorry, Forrest.
Bit by bit, putting it together.
And now it's time to focus on one particular show to go in depth with and discuss / debate / argue with love.
There's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and the vermin of the world inhabit it, and its morals aren't worth what a pig could spit, and it goes by the name of London. At the top of the hole sit the privileged few, making mock of the vermin in the lower zoo, turning beauty into filth and greed. I, too, have sailed the world and seen its wonders, for the cruelty of men is as wondrous as Peru. But there's no place like
Yes,
London.
that's right. Today we're going behind the scenes with the musical Sweeney Todd. Music and lyrics, of course, by Stephen Sondheim, and a book by Hugh Wheeler. Forrest is going to start us off with a synopsis, and then we'll move into some background info from Lenny. Take it away, Forrest.
Sweeney Todd is a musical set in 19th century London, but it is about a man named Benjamin Barker who has been wrongly accused, convicted of a crime, sent to Australia for years. He returns after 15 years in prison, goes by the name of Sweeney Todd. He is planning to reunite with his wife and daughter, but they have been surreptitiously, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I guess I have to spoil it. But the judge has already taken his daughter as his ward and driven his wife crazy and also raped her. It's very sad. It's a dark story. What are we doing? You know, it's dark. But he wants to reunite his wife, but when he gets back, he discovers a seemingly kind woman named Mrs. Lovett, right, who's willing to help him and be his friend. She is a pie shop owner, but times are hard in London.
And the kitty cats are fast.
So true, them. Kitty cats is quick, you know. But his road to revenge leads him to open up his old barber shop, where at first he just plans revenge on the judge who ruined his life. But as the judge, he is unable to kill the judge. He starts his madness. This is one of the great parts about the musical, that Stephen Sondheim and Hugh Wheeler make this, you know, convoluted plot so amazing. But his madness turns to wanting to kill every human being in the entire human race. His revenge is so great. But eventually they start, Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd work together to kill people and put them into their meat pies and serve them to people. The end, super gory. Everyone dies. Except, I didn't mention Tobias, their simpleton. I don't know how to describe him. He's a young man who is very boyish. He's usually played by a youngish man, but he has the sensibilities of a young boy, right? He has the mental capacity of a much younger person than he is. And in the end, Sweeney discovers that his wife is alive, even though Mrs. Lovett told him she was dead, which causes him to go crazy and kill Mrs. Lovett. Then Toby kills Sweeney Todd. It's a bloody mess. Okay, what can I say? Okay, that is. I'm telling you, that's the best you're gonna get for a synopsis. Okay, that's the best synopsis you're gonna get. Don't look at Wikipedia. Just listen to this review. Okay?
Thank you.
That's
Forrest.
about as good. You're right.
That's
It's
tough.
so convoluted.
There's a
so
lot that
many
goes
plot
on.
points.
Yeah.
But it works so well. I mean, we'll get into it, but it works so well. It's a very understandable plot. When you see it on stage, you're like, yes, yes. The twist makes sense. It all comes together. So
Absolutely. Lenny, some background.
Very, very brief background, as brief as I can make it, because there is a ton of interesting information about the origins of the tale of Sweeney Todd. It could be its own, 3-hour podcast in and of itself. But the story dates back to the late 1700s and seems to have its roots in Paris and may or may not be based on some kernels of facts concerning a murderous barber and his accomplice, a baker who turns the barber's victims into pies, an urban legend of sorts. Flash forward to the 1840s, London, where the story appears in a magazine in a serialized form. Stage adaptations crop up, and the story gets told and retold over and over, becomes folklore over the next 100 years or so in various books, stage adaptations, film adaptations, with the story details changing and morphing until we land in 1970, and the story gets dramatized anew and afresh in London by playwright Christopher Bond. Mr. Stephen Sondheim just happened to see this version of the tale and thought that this murderous barber should sing. And he was right. So Sondheim's Sweeney Todd opens on March 1st, 1979 at the Uris Theater on Broadway, which is now the Gershwin, home to Wicked for the past 20 years.
Right.
Directed by the legendary Harold Prince, starring Angela Lansbury, Len Cariou, Ken Jennings, Sarah Rice, I think it's Edmund Lindeck, Merle Louise, and Victor Garber in principal roles. The production was nominated for 9 Tony Awards, and it won 8.
Jeez.
The only one it didn't win was Best Lighting Design.
who won Best Lighting Design, Lenny?
I have that.
Do you remember who was up against in the Tonys?
Are you
Don't
kidding
look.
me?
Don't look.
How do you have that at your fingertips?
Because I learned from last time
He's gonna
that I
ask
have
you.
all of the information at me. The winner for the best lighting design was a gentleman named Roger Morgan for a play called The Crucifier of Blood.
Okay, so they added plays in.
Plays
so
and
that
musicals
might-
were
that might be why.
Gotcha.
all together at that point. So, where are we at? 9 Tony Awards winning 8. The production closed June 29th, 1980, having played 557 performances.
Nice.
It embarked on a national tour starring Angela Lansbury again, and this time with George Hearn as Sweeney Todd.
Who we just heard.
Who we just heard leading us in. That production was filmed in 1981, and thank the theater gods that it was. There have been 3 Broadway revivals in 1989, starring Beth Fowler and Bob Gunton. 2005 with Patti LuPone and Michael Cerveris. That production was notable for the concept employed by director John Doyle, where the actors were also the orchestra, and it's way pared down from the grand operatic that Hal Prince put on initially. And then the 3rd Broadway revival, currently running, starring Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford. It's constantly revived in London, West End, regional theaters, opera companies, major concert versions. Notably, a 2000 concert, which was filmed and shown on PBS and available on YouTube with Patti LuPone, George Hearn, and Audra McDonald and Neil Patrick Harris. There was also a 2014 concert filmed with Emma Thompson and opera star Bryn Terfel, along with...
I love him.
You know him?
Yes,
Yeah,
he's the Welsh guy. He just sang at the Coronation of the King. He is a wonderful singer, classical singer.
He's great.
Love
I
him.
actually just watched this concert recently in preparation for
I
this.
need the
I haven't
link.
seen it. It's on YouTube. I'll
Okay.
send it to you.
Yeah.
And Audra McDonald again as the baker's wife, a beggar woman. Different show. And Christian Borle also is in that production. Also, we have a 2007 musical film starring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter and the late, great Alan Rickman, etc., etc. The point is, from its original production, Sweeney Todd has never gone away. It's always being constantly revived and rehashed and renewed and rejiggered. It's fantastic, and it deserves it. If I tried to name even a small portion of the notable names who have played the principal roles in major productions of the show over the year, we would be here literally all night. The show is epic, it's legendary, the material is challenging and layered and rewarding to perform, and is like catnip to actors and singers. It is truly one of the great all-time shows.
Yeah.
And that's as brief as I could make
You did
the
good.
background of
Yeah.
that.
Great.
There's just so much.
Can we just say, too, the original big financial failure, by the
Yeah,
way, too.
huge.
I didn't know that.
Big
Yeah.
failure. Yeah,
What
lost
a
all its money
surprise.
Yeah.
on its investment. But,
Yep.
And didn't do well when it went west to California.
Nope.
That did not do
Well,
well.
what happened to change that? I mean,
It did better in New York, but even then, I think part of it was how Prince's vision, right? He wanted the huge orchestra. He wanted it in one of the biggest Broadway theaters.
Yeah.
Whereas Sondheim had always envisioned it as a scaled down,
more intimate.
kind of show,
Yep.
which
Interesting.
Well,
We'll talk about it, right?
yeah, and anytime we will talk about any Sondheim show going forward, like that's going to be generally the case.
It
It's a
made no
huge
money.
financial
Yeah.
failure, and then word of mouth gets around in stock and amateur and tours, and then
Everybody loves it.
Yeah. It just takes time for discovery.
Sure.
Guess what? You've made it this far into the show with us, friends, and you're about to be rewarded with the good stuff. The fun stuff. The stuff we originally started the whole podcast for. The curtain call segment. I'll give the guys a topic, all in reference to our feature show of the episode, of course, and then they'll discuss and disagree, and hopefully you'll learn something you didn't know along the way. You ready, guys?
Let's do it.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd. He served a dark and a vengeful God. What happened then? Well, that's the play, and he wouldn't want us to give it away. Not Sweeney.
Not Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of feet, street.
First of all, can you each tell us about your background with the show and how you became familiar with it? And let's have Forrest, since Lenny was just talking Forrest, you go first.
Sure. When I started listening to musicals, I quickly was turned on to Stephen Sondheim. I think this might have been the second Stephen Sondheim musical I listened to. I knew it I started listening to the cast recording. I listened to Company first, and I said, oh, this is good. And then once you get into musical theater, you realize what a giant Stephen Sondheim is, as a composer, as a lyricist. And so I listened to that recording. I did not realize till a year or so, it was the original Broadway recording with Angela Lansbury, that I only had the highlights disc. There's a little ribbon to the left side and it says highlights. And about a year ago, I realized, wait a minute, I haven't even listened to the whole thing, It came in that, I showed Lenny this, I bought a bundle from Playbill of 25 CDs, like essential CD recordings,
Cool.
and that was one of them. Did not realize it was a highlight disc, though. So a little upset by that they tricked me. But after I loved the show then. I watched the recording of George Hearn and Angela Lansbury in that, not original cast, but when they did it in Los Angeles. Then went on to the 2005 revival with Patti LuPone. Loved that recording. It took a minute to get adjusted to it. We'll talk about that and the pros and cons of it.
We will indeed.
And then I was thrilled when they announced revival. Not 100% thrilled with the casting. I'm sure Lenny and I will disagree with this. I didn't sit right with me when they announced the casting, but we'll get into all
Okay.
that. But yeah, so I always loved the show since I listened to it. I always recognized it as one of the greatest pieces of musical theater.
Classic. Lenny, background.
Yeah, so I was 20 when I discovered Sweeney Todd. I was working with a vocal coach, and he gave me the song Joanna to work on. I was completely unfamiliar with the score, so this is back in the olden days before YouTube and whatnot. So he played it for me. It didn't make sense. It's rhythmically, Sondheim in general, rhythmically weird, musically weird.
Complex,
Particularly when you are kind of... Your bread and butter is Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Can
we're
I
on
ask?
Yes.
So was it Anthony's Joanna?
Yeah.
the
It
high
was
one?
Anthony's
Okay,
Joanna.
sure,
Yeah. So I said, I need to figure out what this is. So I went down to the Tower Records, R.I.P., and scrolled through all the cast recordings to see if I could find it. What is this weird art on the cover? I don't understand. So I get it home and I play it, and then play it again. Oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life. And it all kind of clicked and made sense. Mind blown emoji, if you will. So I was told that there was the video of Lansbury and George Hearn, and I could not get to the Blockbuster video fast enough to see if I could find it.
Again,
and,
R.I.P. Yeah.
Yes, R.I.P. And there it was. And I cannot tell you how many late fees I had on that video because I kept getting it, kept watching it because I just couldn't fathom the kind of genius, weird, insane thing that I was watching that I loved that was kind of life-changing, as it will, if in that like young, tender age, 18, 19, 20, and you're discovering all this stuff and your world is being opened up to what it can be. So, and Sweeney Todd actually was my second Sondheim score that I...
What was your
as well.
first?
Into the Woods.
Jinx, yeah.
Into the
Oh,
Woods.
Into the Woods.
Oh,
Into the Woods,
my
yeah.
Okay,
favorite.
I take it back. My third one because I think I knew Into the Woods. Then Company.
That's
Okay,
sort
fair
of like
enough.
the entry point.
I kind of
is,
forget about
yeah.
Into the Woods. Okay.
So that's it, and it just never has left. Sweeney Todd has always been there.
It's in your DNA now.
It is absolutely in my DNA.
Love it. Forrest, rank this musical from 1 to 10, worst to best for you personally, and tell us why you chose that ranking.
Oh, it's got to be a 10. I feel like since we've done 1776 and Sweeney Todd, I feel like I'm a pretty harsh critic, but we've done 2 of some of my favorite shows, so I'm giving it pretty high rankings, but it's got to be a 10. One of the best musicals ever written. The lyrics, the music is so complex. I feel like you could take a college course on the music. You could spend days deciphering the lyrics. We're going to talk about some of it later, but it's just a whole 3-course, 5-course meal sitting there.
Absolutely.
Lenny, okay, so is this in your top 10 favorite musicals?
Of all time, I would have to pull out that list, but I think it's close. If
Do you
it's
know
not
where it
in
is
the
on
top
mine?
10.
So I have a list of my favorite scores. Do
Yeah.
you know where it is on mine?
No,
I'm
I
going to
don't.
say number 3.
It's number 2. It's
Okay,
my
okay.
second favorite Broadway score of
What's
all time.
first?
So Falsettos is number 1.
that's right, that's
Because
right.
I do love Sweeney Todd so much, but sometimes I lean into more admiring it than like truly loving it. But it's the second best score out of however many. So it's
That's a really interesting distinction,
amazing,
though. The
okay.
admiration versus
Yeah.
the touching you, and it's just love, and it's just
Right.
in
Oh,
you.
yeah.
That's what we should have a whole show just on that.
yes,
Yes.
and we'll get into more
Yeah.
when we talk about it, I'm sure. I keep saying that, but go ahead, Lenny.
Lenny, 1
no,
to 10.
I totally feel what you just said. Sometimes more appreciating than loving. I'm right there with you. As genius as I know that this is, it's not my favorite Sondheim score necessarily. It's probably in my top 10, but not, close to the top. But my ranking, like you asked, is 9.5. It is nearly perfect, I think. It is a legitimate masterpiece. And can I just stop and say, before we really get into this, we're both harsh critics. We're going to rip this thing apart and put it back together. And who are we to have any opinions up against Sondheim and Hugh Wheeler and Hal Prince and the creators of this piece? But that's what makes a masterpiece, that you can kind of rip it apart and put it back together. And I had something else that I was going for there, but I forgot what it is. So let's just go.
All right. Why the 0.5 knockoff? I got to know.
Because maybe there's something better.
I would say, is there a
Interesting.
musical that's 10 out of 10 for you though? Like I'm saying I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying of all the musicals, this has to be a 10. If this isn't a 10, then what's a 10 for me? Is there one for you?
I think that there is. I was thinking about it a
Oklahoma?
lot today. No, it's not Oklahoma.
It shouldn't be. Okay, so
Thank God.
Shut up. No, I think there is one, and we'll say it if we ever talk about that show.
okay. Ooh,
But
intriguing.
I don't know, because there are... this is what I was trying to say earlier a minute ago. The 0.5 knockoff is because I think there are legitimate things that maybe they should have tightened or changed or looked at differently before they froze the show.
I agree.
And it also has to do with the appreciation more than loving. I think they're kind of...
fair.
these rankings are sort of...
Arbitrary.
Yeah.
Sure. Subjective.
Totally subjective. So, and maybe just because I, felt like being salty today to give this rating. I don't know.
Always leaving room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Tomorrow it might be an 11. You never know.
100%.
All right, Forrest, tell us your favorite and least favorite moment in the show.
I think my favorite moment, the point for me when the show really comes alive, is Mrs. Lovett's entrance. Okay, that Worst Pies in London song. Watching that Angela Lansbury recording, she jumps off the stage. She's amazing. Everything she does, her accent, her characterizations, it's just hilarious. It just, like I said, that's the point that the show comes alive. Before that, I'm a little bored. And after that, there's sections where I'm like, oh, we could cut this. But no, once she comes on and sings Worst Pies in London, I'm all in.
And she was on the fence about taking the role until Sondheim played her that piece because her quote was, "The show isn't called Mrs. Lovett."
So true.
I don't want to be second banana, but then he played her that song and she was like, okay, I'm in.
Can I tell you something? In Sunday in the Park with George, okay, Mandy Patinkin, Sondheim wanted Mandy Patinkin, so they called and asked him, but Mandy did not want to audition. And Stephen Sondheim said, everyone has to audition except Angela Lansbury. Does not audition. She's good to go. Yeah, so, but that's just a fun little fact. But, so that's my favorite moment probably. Least favorite moment, probably the contest. That's kind of where it starts to drag for me. When the Pirelli stuff, I don't love that. Well, we'll get into that in least favorite song. But so probably least favorite moment of the contest. And they had a longer at one point where he like pulled someone's tooth out too, and they cut some of it. Jeez. I think they should have cut a little more, in my opinion. But
Lenny.
Well, I'm gonna piggyback in on what he was saying. My least favorite moment in the show is also the Pirelli stuff, Pirelli stuff. It has to be there because there are plot points built in.
Hinge on it, yeah.
Yeah, but yes, I'm like, okay, come on. Because we've had, up to this point, like everything has been exposition up to this point, basically, except for maybe Worst Pies in London. And at this point, we're 30 minutes into the show, maybe?
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, give me something. Let's move it along. Let's go. But that's the introduction of Tobias, which is important. It's the setup for the murder of Pirelli, which starts everything going. You can't do it without it, but I wish they would have. This is the 0.5.
Could have been trimmed.
Right.
Yeah.
And can I say too, this is the first part of the show where we shift away from Sweeney and Mrs. Lovett too. And I think it's Sondheim who points it out, but I can't remember. But he said that after they took the focus away from them, is kind of where they did some cutting there, but probably they maybe could have done more. So.
Interesting. All right, let's go on to favorite.
Wait.
Oh, no, yeah.
My favorite
more.
moments.
What's your favorite moment?
Oh, right. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, so because this is a masterpiece and it's all in the minutia, I have like 5, but I'll try to go through them really quickly.
Okay.
My first favorite moment is in the prelude, even before the opening number begins, that factory whistle that
so
jars
great,
you out of
isn't
your
it?
chair.
I know.
Yes.
There's a meme about that actually.
Yeah,
even.
it tells you that you have no idea what you are being set up for. Prepare for anything.
Yes.
And second favorite moment in the show is the musical build-up to Sweeney Todd's entrance. It has got to be one of the greatest, most terrifying entrances musically. It's just, it builds and builds and builds and builds, and the sopranos are screaming, and you know that Sweeney is standing back, the actor playing Sweeney is standing backstage saying, gosh, after all this, don't screw it up, kid. It's incredible. Also, for tension, sheer tension and gasp-inducing, the intro to Pretty Women, where the Judge Turpin is finally in Sweeney Todd's chair. Will he or won't he? And then, hilarity ensues. But tension-wise, it's one of the most incredible moments I've ever experienced.
Agreed.
The sequence song scene, Not While I'm Around, late in Act 2, because the song is great, of course, but you've got 12 things happening at once. You've got Tobias figuring out what's going on. You've got Mrs. Lovett figuring out that Tobias has figured out what's going on.
It's all coming together,
and what to do about it.
Yeah.
And it's just this tense chess match. Viscerally elicits a visceral response to any watcher. And if it doesn't, then check your pulse, basically. It's a crazy, crazy moment. And then there's a moment in middle of Act 1 that just makes me giddy every time I hear it. The song is Kiss Me Part 2. And I'll talk about this later, but there's Anthony and Joanna's interaction, the harmonies with the Beatle and the Judge. It's just a crazy moment that just makes me like tingle with excitement. That's all.
That's awesome.
22 favorite moments from Lenny. No, I'm just kidding. Those were all great.
I could have picked 15 more.
I got chills when you were talking about the opening number, actually, just like because I was back. Yeah, I could feel it. I completely agree. It's amazing. Segueing into favorite, least favorite songs, Forrest.
My favorite song, the best song in the score, it's in my top 10, top 20 favorite. Do you know what it's going to be, Lenny?
I don't.
He's gonna make a face with it.
I don't.
You don't know what the best song in the score is by far?
I mean, I love Joanna. I love Pretty Women.
there
I love
are
Nothing's
four
Gonna Harm You.
correct
I
There's
mean,
one that's just an expert musical theater song, just for what it does musically, what it does dramatically. It's the epiphany that he has close to the end of Act 1. If you do have an intermission, I think the 05 one didn't have an intermission. I'm sorry, but so once he almost kills the judge, and he takes his vengeance for one man, and it musically, Stephen Sondheim's able to switch that to, he wants to kill everyone now, which you're like, well, how does that work? But in the song, it works. He's having like a schizophrenic breakdown, some religious imagery. In the play, the Christopher Bond play that you referenced, it takes up about 3 lines, maybe, that Sweeney Todd's like, well, if I can't get the judge, I'm going to kill everyone else. It's more artfully said than that. But in the musical, Stephen Sondheim took that and just makes it into one of the greatest Broadway songs of all time.
Because in all of the whole human race, Mrs. Lovett, there are 2 kinds of men and only 2. There's one staying put in his proper place, and the one with his foot in the other one's face. Look at me, Mrs. Lovett, look at you. We all deserve to die. Even you, Mrs. Lovett, even I.
Now, your least favorite
song. This one, I don't know if you count it. It was cut. I do not like the judge's Joanna. Stephen Sondheim loved that song. I think Stephen Sondheim relished making the audience tingle, not in a good way, in a bad way. Okay, making the audience squirm in their seats.
There's the word.
Yeah, squirm. We can go there if you want. Stephen Sondheim relished making the audience squirm in their seats. About how uncomfortable this moment was for everyone. He wanted to revel in that. I agree, it is uncomfortable. I think you should just leave it out. I think now it tends to be done in performance. It was cut from the original. That was included on the cast album, wasn't it? I would know. Got the highlights one, okay? But I don't think that was in the highlights one, but I'm pretty sure it is in the original album.
I think it is.
I believe it is, even though it was cut from the original production.
Right.
But that, for me, is just a little unnecessary. Though Stephen Sondheim argued that it did introduce the judge musically, and otherwise he'd be the only character that wasn't introduced with the song. So
interesting.
But it was part of that middle section that they cut along with the contest. They decided to get rid of that.
Cool. All right, Mr. West.
So, yet again, I have multiple answers. So, really, and this harkens back to the appreciate versus love. There are 4 correct answers to the favorite song question.
Of course.
Or the best song, I guess. Best versus favorite. Your answers are Epiphany, Worst Pies in London, A Little Priest, and Not While I'm Around. That's the four of the greatest songs ever written for the musical theater, certainly in this score. And any production, any recording will be measured by this song. So the obvious choices, and we could spend hours on each of those. But my personal deeper cuts, because I think maybe that makes it a little more interesting than just going with the obvious, is the opening of Act 2, God That's Good, which was never a favorite of mine up until researching for this. It was always one that I skipped over, and I don't have any reason why to do that. But you look at it, you listen to it, and it's a 3-act play.
There's so much going on.
There's so much going on.
Let's listen to it. This is a good time.
Yeah.
We'll put this in and listen.
Bless my eyes. Fresh supplies. How about it, dearie? Hear it a tinkling just above my weary toe. Who watches over us? Didn't have any kick. Yours there's no weary toe. Be throw the old woman out.
Okay, going on, Lenny.
Going on, the next song, the Joanna Quartet, is maybe my actual favorite song in this score.
I agree with that. It's amazing.
It's a fantastic song. It takes us through the passage of time. It has Sweeney sort of saying goodbye to the daughter he never really knew and will never know. He's coming to that. And it's a sweet and tender and lovely. And all the while, he is murdering people throughout this beautiful little song. And the juxtaposition is horrific and hysterical all at once. You also got, during this quartet, you've got Anthony looking for Joanna. You've got Joanna locked in the madhouse, hoping to be rescued. And you've got the beggar woman saying the city is on fire. It's a great song. And then the 4th is, I've mentioned it already, Kiss Me Part 2. That's where Anthony and Joanna have just met and are making their plan to escape the clutches of her evil guardian, the judge. And Joanna and Anthony, I've never thought were the brightest bulbs. So they're just sort of funny in their making of the plans. You've also got the Beadle and the Judge talking about going to meet Sweeney Todd and getting the shave, and it's just harmonies everywhere, and Joanna and Anthony, and it's crazy. It's beautiful, and it just kind of makes my ear slap a little bit in a good way. And my least favorite, I'm going to go and say that Mea Culpa, the Judge's Joanna song, definitely, whenever it's included, is my least favorite. There's a segment late in Act 2 called Parlor Songs, which I just hate.
Yeah.
The song is what it is, but it also just stops the proceedings cold.
Agreed.
There may be a little bit of a plot point hidden in there that we need to deal with, I guess, but we can circumvent that song. But those were easy choices. Here's one you may fight me on. Okay. I 100% think By the Sea needs to go.
I love that one.
It's a good song. I don't know about its placement in the show.
It's so cute and fun and sweet. We need a little lighthearted moment. I love it.
Do we, though?
Yes, we do. We need a place for our brains and our hearts to pause.
I always felt like By the Sea and Not While I'm Around just don't really fit in the moment they're in that show. I understand Not While I'm Around. I love watching it dramatically happen because you're right, there is so much going on. Yeah. But those two just kind of feel out of step with me with the rest of the score. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, those two.
Surprise.
So I'm not going to argue with you about By the Sea. I think it's a good song. Not my favorite one in Sweeney Todd.
It's a good song, just not for that. For my opinion, not for that show, not for that moment. It's probably there because Angela Lansbury contractually needed an Act 2 solo.
Yeah,
but it just stops everything. And
oh, it's got some good lyrics though.
It does. Put it in a different show, do it in concerts. I'm here for it, but it just stops the proceedings.
One of my favorite lyrics in that song is, "A seaside wedding could be devised, my rumpled bedding legitimized." I thought she said a seaside wedding would be divine. Why did I think Sondheim would do a slant rhyme? But until recently, I guess it was one of these read-through or listen-throughs, and I realized,
Wait
devised. Yeah, with, what was the other word?
Sense that way.
Oh, man, so
brilliant
good.
lyrics, my God.
But a seaside wedding could be devised, me rumpled bedding legitimized, me eyelids are flatter, are turned into butter, the moment I mutter, I do.
All right, so favorite characters, and if you feel like it, throw in your favorite actor to have portrayed the role, Forrest.
I guess I'm just taking the basic answers here, I love Mrs. Lovett, I love Sweeney Todd. Those are the two best characters. And I think I like Sweeney Todd as a character more than I like Mrs. Lovett. I think I'm more invested in Sweeney Todd's story in the end. And I know there's a lot of side characters. They mostly don't do anything for me. I'm very invested in the story of Sweeney Todd, okay? And who's my favorite to play it? Oh, I don't know, is this controversial? Oh. My favorite Sweeney is Michael Cerveris.
Interesting.
It's not my favorite cast recordings we'll talk about, but he is my favorite Sweeney. I think he's awesome. I think his voice just fits that role, unlike some people who have played the role. I think his voice is perfect. I think he's
rhyme with Robin.
Oh, maybe. We might talk about it later. But I just think he's amazing in that role. He's so creepy. Just great. And that's the production I watched before we did this. I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, before we did this podcast, that's the one. I'd seen the original, but that one, man, and I loved it. Loved watching them.
Lenny, same question.
I'm also going to have to be basic. Mrs. Lovett is one of the greatest creations in musical theater. Indeed. Period. Yep. Full stop.
Yep.
And who's played it the best? Angela Lansbury. Everybody has been chasing her since 1978.
The original and still the best.
Yeah, yep. I mean, a lot of her choices, a lot of the looks are cliche, but they're cliche because they work. They're brilliant.
Them, yeah.
The list of performers, just off the top of my head, who've done this part: Angela Lansbury, Dorothy Loudon, Patti LuPone, Emma Thompson, Imelda Staunton, Helena Bonham Carter, Annalee Ashford, Christine Baranski, like forever and ever and ever. Everybody wants to play this part for a reason. She gets great material, that's one thing. But then what's so cool about her for me, I started thinking about it from, Christine Baranski's perspective as an actor, what makes this part so cool. And one thing that I kind of landed on was there are so many holes in her story as written. There's so much the actor can fill in for
Make
interpretation.
Make it her own.
Yeah. Because there's very little explicitly stated about Mrs. Lovett other than she makes pies.
Never thought about that. That's
true.
It's
really cool. So as an actor to be able to fill in that backstory,
you can personalize it. Yeah,
right, 100%. She's the villain, or she's a villain. She's tenderly and motherly, yes. She's Todd's yes man. She requires comedy and high camp and melodrama. I mean, it's so good, the way it's written. And I can't think... I don't know, you didn't ask this question explicitly, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I don't know who else could play it the way Lansbury did at that time, or even this time. I mean... For me, you've got to have that humor and the pathos and the motherly and the villain. You got to be able to do it all. Knife-wielding Mrs. Potts is kind of what I came up with. Like, I don't know if that's... But that's the energy she has. The closest I kind of was able to land on maybe was Bernadette Peters in her prime, like late 80s, early 90s. I don't know if she ever had the voice to sing it, but she has that cute, quirky charm and the silliness about her, but I bet she could cut you. You know what I'm saying?
I'd buy that recording. I'd listen.
I guess
totally
personality-wise,
would,
wow.
Maybe.
That is
I don't
something
know.
I've not thought of.
Me neither.
Stephanie, do you know who Dorothy Loudon is? No. So she played the original Mrs. Hannigan in Annie in the original cast,
and
she was
probably be great.
Yeah, and so she was the replacement for Angela in the original cast, and it's so funny. I think there's a clip of her doing the worst pies in London on YouTube, and she makes London a 3-syllable word. Every she's the worst pies in London. Just helps it out. It's so funny. I love Dorothy Loudon. She's amazing, but just
She
very
is a
interesting to
thing,
see
for
her.
sure.
So
He's a character.
yeah.
Well, Forrest, what would you change about the show?
We discussed. I have one cut we already discussed and one that we haven't really discussed yet. I'm cutting the contest probably, or trimming it down to make it store those dramatic moments work, but we don't really need all that
More
time.
succinct, yeah.
And then there's a moment in the second act where Sweeney Todd says, "Anthony, we got to train you to be a wig maker so we can get into the asylum." And then he gets in there and just immediately pulls a gun out. Like, okay, maybe we didn't need a wig maker, but so we got it. There's got to be a way to work that better.
noticed
Okay,
that.
so
That's really
strange.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not on most of the cast recordings, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's
or
not.
Any
That-
of them. But
That's
it's,
just, and it's a moment in the show that's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna be a wig. It happens all of a sudden. He's like, we need to train you to be a wig maker. He's like, a lot, and he hasn't like
Yeah.
repeated. I forget which melody it's to. Is it to
I think it's to a whole. There's tawny and there's golden saffron. There's flaxen and there's blonde.
Yeah,
it's kind of its own melody. Pretty Women
Pretty
is
Women,
what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I knew it was one of the melodies. Good
One
job,
of
Lenny.
those.
Good job.
Thanks.
You said it's not a melody, then you literally hummed it. Yeah.
You got it. Ba, 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 ba. You'll eventually get there, right?
Right, yeah. Lenny,
Yes,
what do you think?
Stephanie.
What would you change about the show?
Well, I've already said cut by the sea and parlor songs, quick. And yes,
You're cutting by the sea.
I'm
Wait,
cutting
you're cutting
by
it?
the sea. Yes.
Jeez,
Here's what I want.
I didn't want to cut.
Look,
Yeah.
from the end of the Joanna Quartet in Act 2, I want us fast-tracked into terror and horrific situations. I want to get to this end. And I don't think a way to get there is to take a 3 or 4 minute comedy number, smoke break type situation. It's just, it loses the momentum for me. Just like the wig maker sequence, like everything after Joanna Reprise, I don't need, or I need to be reworked until we get to, the what's
Moving the
word?
darkness forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, cut those. There's one specific line that I want cut from the script. I think they got lazy, or they missed something, or maybe I'm just finding too much there. So we have the Signor Pirelli barbering contest in Act 1. Beetle Bamford is there, the judge's second-hand man. And he says, "Mr. Todd, you do good work. Where can I find you?" And Sweeney Todd says, "Come to see me in Fleet Street above Mrs. Lovett's pie shop, and I will give you, without a penny's charge, the closest shave you will ever know." And the audience erupts in laughter, because that's, foreshadowing, we know what's happening, and the Beetle doesn't. Great. So flash forward to Pretty Women, and the judge comes in. And the judge says, or Sweeney's saying, "What can I do for you? A styling of your hair, a blah, 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 blah." And the judge says, "But first, sir, I think a shave." And Sweeney says, "The closest I ever gave." They have the same joke, in quotes, twice.
Okay.
And I say that, I've watched the Lansbury version recently, the Johnny Depp movie, and the concerts, all in preparation for this. And every time it just hits me, why are we doing 2 of the same joke?
Yeah, no, that's
It
true.
undercuts the second one, and the second one is the one would want to hit harder, I would imagine. So I would cut that one line, and that's my 0.5 deduction from a 10.
There it is, folks.
Can I back up for a second?
Sure, yeah.
You asked about the favorite character in the show.
Yes.
And I said Mrs. Lovett, which I stand by 100%. I had in my notes here another character that I just sort of overlooked before we moved on, and that character is the ensemble. Yeah. This show has maybe the greatest ensemble.
Used to such great effect.
Yes.
I mean, amazing.
Yes, they are a character of themselves. The sopranos are just ridiculous. You have deep baritones and basses woven into the score. It's crazy, crazy good music, crazy good opportunities for actors, and we'll get into this, the ensemble is sorely missed when they are excised from the show, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Okay, next question is, what would make it difficult to produce on the community theater level? I'm thinking the chair might be hard for some folks to get a hold of and or make. What do you think, Forrest?
That is a good point. And I thought about this a lot, and I did not think of the chair and the stuff, how they operate. Because I think in the John Doyle one, literally, they have him sit in the chair, and then when they kill him, they have him get up and stand up, and like they put a bloody smock on them or something. So that's how they solve
Easy
that.
way out. Yeah.
Probably the hardest part of it, it's basically an opera. So if you're a community theater, you better have some opera singers
Big
to go.
old voices, yeah.
I will say most of the hurdles needed to do this production, John Doyle cleared a lot of those in 2005. So if you're looking to put on a community theater production, if you watch that, there are a lot of good helpful hints, ways to scale it down. If you just watch the Angela Lansbury original one on YouTube, you'd be like, yeah, there's no way my community theater is doing this. So.
What do you think, Lenny?
I think the music. Like what Forrest said, it's hard music, and the more I listen, the harder it gets.
Remember we tried to sing Pretty Women last week? It's just so the melody.
After we recorded last week, we all went upstairs.
We had a little singing session. Pretty Women.
It was very humorous, but fun.
So fun.
But I will say that I think that your community theater puts out, hey, we're doing Sweeney Todd, you are going to get the best of the best of the best singers in the tri-state area to come out for it. So that's it. And to piggyback on what Forrest was saying about like the 2005 revival, John Doyle solving a lot of your problems for you, scaling it back, the 2014 concert that had Emma Thompson and Bryn Terfel in it, the way that they, I think Lonnie Price directed that concert. Yeah. Whenever a kill would happen, he would have a handful of fake blood that the judge or the Sweeney would have, or whoever is being killed, and they would just sort of cover their. I shouldn't cover my face, as I said that, but they cover it on their face, so they have a face full of blood representing "I am now dead," rather than buckets of blood splurting out into the audience.
Or trying to do something cheesy with lights or ribbons or something. That's just always distracts the audience.
They did do red lights in John Doyle's production too. The lights would go red.
If you have to do it, you have to do it. But I like that. That sounds good.
Yeah, I think it lends itself to interpretation or not challenges, but opportunities.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay. How do you guys feel about the 2007 movie adaptation by Tim Burton?
I'll let you go first, Lenny. You probably have more to say on it than I do.
I give it 2 enthusiastic thumbs up.
Out of 10, hopefully?
Out of 2.5. No, I think it is. I think Tim Burton was a good director for the material. I think that without Tim Burton and without Johnny Depp, that movie does not get made. Or any film version of Sondheim Sweeney Todd, it doesn't get
happen.
made.
Yeah.
So maybe you're grading on a curve, perhaps, but I remember sitting in the theater in late 2007, early 2008, whatever it was, and thoroughly enjoying myself. And I did rewatch it over the past couple weeks, and some of the like CGI that they used didn't really age well. And you have to overlook a few things like that, but it doesn't. And I'm speaking, for example, the opening credit sequence. It's kind of an animated sequence, I guess. Whereas 15 years ago when it was done on the big screen, it looked great, but through the 2023 lens, it's a little cheesy. But it works still. I think that Tim Burton really respected the material and honored it while putting his own stamp on it. It's probably as good as any adaptation was going to be. It does go smaller, and as I said a minute ago, it excises the ensemble, which is to its detriment, but it probably had to happen like that. I mean, can you see in 2007, a big chorus of Londoners singing, "God, that's good," and the audience not laughing them off the screen? Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got kind of one foot in camp and one foot in horror, and then a couple of toes in the musical category, and it works. For me, it just works. It cut a lot of the songs in half, and no, Helena Bonham Carter is not somebody I would put in her album to listen to.
Just about to say, the only thing that kills that whole movie for me is her voice. She's so bad. I'm sorry. I
She
can't
hits the
stand her.
notes, and she makes it happen.
She acts it great. She's a wonderful actress, but her voice, oh.
I would never choose to listen to her version of Mrs. Lovett or anything else as a singer, but if that's the price I have to pay to see a really cool, aesthetically, visually pleasing musical,
She looks
film,
great. She
it's
acts
great.
it well. I mean, yeah.
I'm here for it. I think there's just so much to like in it. If you can, as a musical theater nerd, set that apart as its own animal from the show.
Not compare it too closely.
Yeah,
to
you
the
can't.
original.
Helena Bonham Carter
It's its
will
own
never
thing.
be Angela Lansbury.
Nope.
And, nobody will ever be anybody. It's
For what it is,
It's fantastic.
Well done. Do you
Yeah.
agree, Forrest, or do you disagree?
I'm on the fence. I love movies. I love musicals. I hate movie musicals. Even that I do not liking people. I do not like people singing on screen. Which I was reading I'm reading Finishing the Hat right now by Stephen Sondheim.
Oh, great.
In some of his essays, he talked about when he was a kid, he liked all types of movies except musical movies. Okay,
That's really funny.
I
never heard that
I felt
quote.
validated in that. But so I did dutifully watch Sweeney Todd. I just sat there, my ears were bleeding the whole time. No, I'm just kidding. I really appreciate the acting. It's very atmospheric. You definitely feel like you're in the Tim Burton world of 19th century London or somewhere in his imagination of London. But yet Carter voices weak, but I love her. Some of her acting choices are quite
There's
excellent.
some tender moments in there that she brings to it, and you have a full face close up that you don't get on stage. So
It's true. So those acting moments, some of the acting moments from Johnny Depp, I thought Johnny Depp was too young to play this character, though. But I mean, you can make it logically make sense. I mean, I guess it's realistic.
Sweeney Todd only has to be about 35.
And just his leaden pitch. You talk about Carter's voice. I can't. Johnny Depp it's like listening to Russell Crowe and Les Mis.
It's not nearly that bad.
His voice tends to go a little flat, which is, I mean, who am I to criticize? But so just musically, I wouldn't listen to it again. But dramatically, there are some satisfying moments. I enjoyed some of a lot of the acting choices done in it. I would say it's a good film. I wouldn't say like it's a good musical movie or anything, but it's successful as a film. And I think part of that had to be cutting the ensemble, unfortunately. Those parts.
You kind of couldn't. I think that the Not While I'm Around sequence in that film is especially affecting because of what you were saying. You could see her face.
It's a sweet moment.
And all the anguish that she's going through, knowing that Toby and what I'm going to have to do about it. She's incredible.
There's so many moments that she catches in that show, so good for her.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Any final thoughts from you guys?
So many.
A few
Can I say some of my favorite lyrics?
Specific.
Can I just read off some of my favorite lyrics? Okay.
Yeah, please.
This is and I will get him back even as he gloats. In the meantime, I'll practice on less honorable throats, Your Honor. You know, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And one more, the last line in the whole musical. To seek revenge may lead to hell, but everyone does it, if seldom as well. I did not know what they said. That's another one where I just didn't know what they said. I think I see where it really to hell, but everyone does it. But I don't know what I thought they said, but that just sounds so good when I finally knew what they had to say.
Yes.
And then if you just go to ladies and their sensitivities, the kind of rhymes he's doing there are ridiculous. Okay, I'm sorry, indulge just read just a little bit of it.
Sure,
so he's like, when a girl's emergent, probably it's urgent. You defer to her gentility, my lord. He does it again, meaning no offense. It happens, they resents it. Ladies and their sensitivities, my lord.
Let's listen to a clip of that. That sounds so brilliant. Let's share that.
Ladies in their sensitivities, my lord, have a fragile sensibility. When a girl's emergent, probably it's urgent. You defer to her gentility, my lord. Personal disorder cannot be ignored, given their genteel proclivities. Meaning no happens, they resent it. Ladies in their sensitivities, my lord.
Okay, any other final thoughts from you guys?
Yes.
A few final thoughts.
I have pages and pages of notes. I'm just so excited about this show. I think that this is... back up. We were talking about spoiler alert a minute ago. Somebody said it. It's like...
Spoiler.
You don't have to spoiler alert this show because it's so available.
Everybody
if you
has
don't
it.
know it,
Yeah.
go find it. It's
Right. Tonight.
right now. Stop what
Yeah.
you're doing. Go look.
That's not
Right.
what are you going where I thought you were? I thought you were
I
going to
don't
say
know.
the music spoils itself because all the musical motifs and the lay motifs he's using, like you could
They keep coming
in
back.
the first scene, you could know what happens if you knew musically what's going on. You know, because you hear, oh man, it's
Wow,
just
I'm
so
going to have
deep.
to re-listen with that
So
in mind,
deep,
Forrest. I've
Stephanie.
never
Just-
thought about that.
He's totally right.
You can't,
I'm not as
you
sophisticated
can't get
as
deep
him.
enough.
He's
You can't
hinting.
I'm not sophisticated enough musically to know everything that's going on, but you just take a listen with
I will.
with those musical themes in mind, especially when the beggar lady comes in.
Yeah, some foreshadowing. I love it. Musical foreshadowing.
Sorry, Lenny, I know.
Lenny.
No, that's fine. So one thing that final thought, I guess, that I want put back in the show or put back in permanently is the beggar woman has a little song right at the very end. I'm not even sure that it has a title, or maybe it's
like
part
a
of another
lullaby or
sequence.
something,
It's a
isn't it?
lullaby, and it's to the tune of "Poor Thing." It's right before Sweeney discovers her in the barber shop, and she's singing to, a imaginary baby Joanna, as we have, spoiler alert, found out that the beggar woman is Sweeney's not dead wife. And it's a great little moment, musically beautiful, and sort of I think that the beggar woman reveal as Sweeney's wife is maybe a little bit of a sloppy moment. And I read it in Finishing the Hat as well, Forrest, that like Sondheim was saying that the audience would get that reveal at different points if they got it at all. And I think that lullaby moment, you can't not get it at that point if the director and the actor have done their job with the staging. And so I think that needs to be put back in, period, full stop.
But so Sondheim was frustrated because not everyone was getting it. He wanted everyone to get the same time right. Some people would know from the beginning. Some people would figure out halfway through. Some people, at the very end, they got it. And he said some people, they walk out, still didn't get it, okay? But I'm okay with that. I do not like the lullaby being included. Just because it's so obvious. I'm like, if they don't get it, let
too on the nose.
them not get it. Let him wait till last moment, then realize, oh, wait a minute, that was his wife? Or
Let
let
it
him
be
get
more
out of the
subtle.
theater and
Yeah.
have someone tell him, So I don't mind as such. I understand wanting the audience to be in uniform.
It's a huge plot point to be missed. I mean,
Yeah,
Hopefully not. But
it would be sad if someone actually didn't come away knowing that.
Yeah. And you want to, as the writer or as the actor on stage, you want to hear that collective
Right.
where
the
they get
intake.
it.
Yeah.
So
ahead, Lenny,
put
sorry.
that back in.
Sure.
You don't know. Put that back
Finger
Yeah,
wagging
it's
going
staying
on.
cut. In my production of Sweeney Todd, it's staying
Well,
cut.
I'm not coming to see yours. Final thoughts. I don't know where we are with that, but I want to give a couple of shout outs to things that we may not mention because they're not part of the three major revivals. In the concert versions and all of those things, which are all available on YouTube for no money. The Angela Lansbury, George Hearn professionally shot film is on Broadway HD channel through Amazon. Well worth your monthly trial subscription to watch it. But a couple of performers and weird things I want to point out. There's the 2001 concert. The soprano named Lisa Vroman was playing Joanna. She's phenomenal. She's not on any other recording that I've ever seen. She's been a Christine Daae and a Cosette and all those things. She's an opera singer.
She's got pipes. Yeah.
Great pipes. Weird change, and maybe Forrest, do you know why they did this? I couldn't find a really good answer. Donna Lynn Champlin in the 2005 revival as Signor Pirelli. Why they made a female play
How
the?
interesting.
Yeah, and she's great. She's fantastic. But I was never really sure why they made that change.
I don't know
but
either.
It's an interesting
strange,
change.
isn't it? Yeah, it makes
The
it more
director's
interesting, I
niece.
guess. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's what it is.
It's
Very interesting. It
interesting.
works
I
in the
don't know.
it works in that production. Yeah, I agree.
Emma Thompson in her 2014 concert. She is also one I will never put in her CD, but she makes some incredibly different, interesting choices. Well worth a watch on that. Love Timothy Spall as the Beatle and Ed Sanders as Tobias in the film version. Timothy Spall is just creepy. Love what he does with that. And for reasons which will send me to hell, Betsy Joslin as Joanna in the 1981 film, because I've never heard a performer be able to be consistently sharp through her entire song. It just gives me all the joy and all the cringe.
What is that from? Is that from?
It's the Lansbury Hearn video.
Really?
Yeah, she's Joanna. She's
I did not notice that.
The eyes and the sharpness.
She just has this really fast vibrato that pushes her sharp so often. It's painful.
It's a fascinating watch. She later played the witch in Into the Woods, and I've seen clips, and she was delightful. Huge shout out. Okay, this is my area of expertise, sort of costumes. The original costume designer, Fran Lee, I believe was her name. Mad props to her for just showing off, and for absolutely no reason, giving the Beetle a phenomenally cool black and white checkered coat for the very last scene, basically the curtain call of the show. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing piece of costuming that should not exist.
That's fun.
Props to her. And props to Alice Ripley and Emily Skinner, circa 2000-ish, 1999-ish, for a stunning recording of Pretty Women that they did on one of their
scenes.
I think it was Unsuspecting
I gotta look
Hearts.
that up.
Yeah, it's
I've never heard that.
Maybe the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Love me some Alice. She is amazing.
Yeah, well, and this is when she still had a full-on soprano, gorgeous every minute of it. Huge props to that. Maybe we could listen to a little snippet of it.
This is a perfect moment to insert a clip, Mr. West.
Pretty women, silhouetted, stay within you. Glancing, stay forever, breathing lightly. Pretty women, blowing out their candles or combing out their hair. Even when they vanish, they somehow can still remain there.
Okay, any final thoughts, Mr. West?
Yes, I'm sorry, I have so many. If I had a Broadway time machine, although this is not technically Broadway, but whatever, I would put my little token in, and it would send me back to 2002, to Washington, D.C., to the Kennedy Center for the Sondheim celebration, or the Summer of Sondheim. Are you guys familiar with this thing that has occurred?
No.
It was amazing, and I wish I could have gone to it. All the summer of 2002, in repertory, there were 6, I think, Sondheim shows running, all of the major ones. And in addition, I think it was the introduction of the Into the Woods Junior that they had performed by local DC whatever schools. But they had production of Sweeney in that summer with Brian Stokes Mitchell as Sweeney Todd.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah, right. Christine Baranski as Mrs. Lovett, which I've mentioned. Hugh Panaro, I think I'm pronouncing his name properly. He's the longest running Phantom of the Opera. Incredible voice playing Antony. Mary Beth Peele, who is the most underrated soprano of all time. She's incredible, playing the beggar woman. And surprise, surprise, Celia Keenan Bolger as Joanna.
Wow.
I had no idea that she had a legit. So maybe
Did you watch it?
Maybe there are clips on YouTube that shouldn't be there. But yeah, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Celia Keenan Bolger is the best Joanna out there.
That's shocking.
Incredible.
Because I don't think of her as having a soprano range.
I didn't either. I was shocked.
You heard it here first,
Yeah.
folks.
Maybe give it a
Go
listen.
check it
Go
out.
find it.
And now it's time for a brand spanking new segment called Desert Island Discs. We'll discuss the major recordings of the show, and then Lenny and Forrest will each choose one and only one of the available cast recordings to listen to for the rest of their hungry, lonely days on a desert island, where they apparently have the means to play recordings. Hey, it's a thought exercise, people.
I love it.
Yeah. Let's take a minute now to discuss the 3 major recordings. The original, of course, the 2005 John Doyle production with Michael Cerveris, Patty, and the one currently on Broadway starring Josh and Anna Lee. Forrest, you want to go first?
Sure. First off, I'm not mad about any of these recordings. I'm always glad when Sweeney Todd gets another recording. But if I had to only have one, I have to take the original. I hate to say it. And usually I feel like most people are most fond of the one they listen to first. And this is the case with me, unfortunately.
But you liked Michael's performance the best.
That's true. I love his Sweeney Todd. But overall, I can't skip out on Angela Lansbury. And I'm not an Angela Lansbury super fan, okay? I'm not someone who like picks her out of the crowd like, oh, that's someone I love. But her performance in this is so good. The train whistle, I can't live without the train whistle. That was one of my biggest gripes of the newest one. There was no train whistle and nothing to replace it, really.
Why was it
shame.
cut? Yeah.
I did not know that was cut.
There's a big empty hole where that whistle should be.
So I need the train whistle. I need those original orchestrations. Though I will say the new one, just to kind of compare and contrast a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I typically don't like a scaled down revival of any show. They did The Most Happy Fellows, one of my favorite shows. They scaled it down in the 1990s. Oh, I was so mad about that, okay? And I was kind of mad about Sweeney Todd too, but just knowing that was the way Stephen Sondheim originally envisioned it, and then watching and listening to the John Doyle production, I don't mind at all. I'm glad it's part of the Sweeney Todd pantheon.
New perspective.
Yeah, and so I enjoy that recording, but not more than the original. Even though I love Patti LuPone in that role too, almost equals Angela. I know Lenny's giving me a face because he doesn't always.
Evil eye from Lenny.
I love Patti LuPone. I don't know, just everything. Her wig. I don't know about that wig. But, the new Sweeney, I do. Okay, can we talk? You mentioned the intro, so the Tony Award performance for the newest Sweeney. Have you seen it, Stephanie? You know, it's so cool.
It
you know,
was amazing.
That was probably the best thing that whoever's producing that show knew what number to put on stage, because there is that build up, and Josh Groban barely sings in it if you don't notice, but he just does exactly what he needed to do in that Tony Award performance. That even said me, I said I want to take it to that show, okay, because that ensemble sounds amazing, that choreography looks so cool, it looks so creepy, Josh Groban looks great, and I love Josh Groban's voice on so many of his solo albums, and Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet, his foray into Broadway. He's such a charming guy, love him. So charming. Why is he playing Sweeney Todd? I remember hearing about the casting. When I first heard of it, I said, well, because Josh Groban's voice, what would we say, like tenor, baritone?
Baritone is what I always think of him
tenor.
as.
I didn't Google his voice range or anything. I mean, he has an incredible range, right? I mean, incredible voice. So I feel bad. Like I don't even hold a candle like to him. So talent-wise, anything, but. Then I think the role of Sweeney would be considered a baritone bass, right? Would we say that's fair?
I would say that's probably fair.
And so some of these songs don't sit right. He's singing it, it's beautiful. Some of them don't sit in the perfect center of his voice, like I would say with Michael Cerveris or even with George Hearn and Lincario. So that's one of the reasons I don't love it. But it is just a beautiful singing performance. To listen to it orally, it's beautiful. So I won't say too many nice things about it because I'm not taking it with me. But and Annalee Ashford, her accent, it's close. I have always not been a huge fan of hers, actually.
Oh,
really? At least not orally. At least audio wise, orally. Sorry. Just on disc, like in Kinky Boots, was not a fan. I thought she was a little over the top. I do enjoy her comedy. Her comedy is quite funny, and I've not seen this production. I couldn't find a bootleg of the newest production. Maybe when it closes.
There are teeny tiny clips.
Okay, yeah.
You look at the
and I've heard she's hilarious, so I'm sure she is hilarious. Her performance probably comes off better on the stage, whereas I probably think Josh Groban's probably sounds better, and on stage it's less convincing because I don't think he's in any way scary or terrifying.
Too much of a nice guy for you.
So true, yeah. So I'm taking the original. I'll listen to it till I have to eat myself like a meat pie. I'm sorry. Meta, okay.
Lenny.
Okay, so before I just reveal my pick, I will discuss them first a little bit.
Dramatic.
Yes, of course. I think that the original recording is great. So great. It's raw, it's gritty, it's dangerous, and a little bit unhinged, especially Lincario. He's kind of like, oh, what are we doing? I can't find, where are you going? As a lot of those recordings from the 70s were that time. I don't know if it was having the orchestra in the room with the performers and just kind of doing it all at once. I don't know. But it lends to a really cool raw quality that I like very
exciting.
much.
Lincario saying, Benjamin Barker! This is absolutely terrifying. Okay, sorry, with that train whistle too, sorry. It was like, okay,
so much
I'm creeped out here.
That.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So it's great. We love it. We're going to set it to the side. The 2005 recording, I will not take that one. Let's just put that one out. It's a novelty for the orchestrations because, as we said, it's the actors are the orchestra. They're carrying their instruments around with them through the whole show.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that.
Yeah,
they
it
are.
just sort of been glancing. Yeah,
Patty
so
LaPone's
Patty
playing
LaPone's
a
got her tuba.
Which, that's what I'm cutting from the show, sorry. I don't find it as novel as everyone else does, but...
I like the moment at which it happened. It was fun. It was a nice laugh, but yeah. But yeah, you've got Anthony and Joanna playing their cellos, and you got trumpets and clarinets, and it's a very pared down orchestration. So it's cool, and they had to be really inventive, and I like it for that reason. And they did win the Tony that year for best orchestrations. I don't like it because there's no ensemble, and I'm not a fan of Michael Cerveris.
What?
Never have been.
Wow.
The exception is Fun Home.
Yeah,
the exception is Fun
yeah.
Home. Yeah.
Tommy?
He just has this voice that I can't really listen to very long.
Such a good impression.
It's a lot. It's just so much.
He was Juan Perón, right? In this
He
recent
was,
movie,
and he was. It was serviceable. It was fine because
That's the
he's,
character.
Okay.
It just doesn't work for me. It's too snidely whiplash, mustache twirling. It's too much.
Over the top.
Yeah, Lapone is Lapone, which we love her for. We wouldn't want her to be any other way, with all of her scoops and her swoops and all the things. But I was really into the 2000 or 2001, I don't remember the year, recording that they did with the New York Philharmonic with George Hearn. And I listened to that so much, and it was so much ingrained in my mind that by that point, 4 years later, I was like, give me a new Mrs. Lovett. I want something else. So I was sort of disappointed in Patty for that, which I will say she made a whole slew of new choices, new interpretations for the John Doyle revival, which
Made
is
it
awesome.
her own, yeah.
Yeah. But I would have loved to have had a Baron Maisie or a Donna Murphy or somebody else have the opportunity to play the part at that point. But, okay, so this is the one thing from the 2000 revival that I would take if I could. Alexander Geminiani as the Beatle. Such a throwaway character, I've always thought. I hate the character. He does nothing except for slap some high notes in Kiss Me Part 2. But Geminiani, who is the son of Paul Geminiani, who was the music director for many of Sondheim's shows, makes it, what I can only assume is an incredible acting choice throughout, and just kind of throws the whole thing away.
If you listen to the recording, it's like the most boring voice.
Yes.
He's like saying it like he's reading it off a piece of paper.
He
like,
cannot possibly be bothered with any of this.
Nepotism in action? Question mark?
No,
What?
no.
But
It's
if you watch the recording, it's actually like he finds
it
laughs
works.
that no one else is
works.
finding.
Okay,
Like,
cool.
Nepotism in action. Let me qualify that. He has done many other things. He was Jean Valjean in 2006.
Good in his own right.
Like, he's done
Yeah.
He's a good actor.
stuff.
Yeah,
he's
he's
a
a
very good
qualified
actor.
actor.
Singer.
He was just doing a different take.
Very different
Very
take. It's
different.
just over the whole thing.
Because just
And-
listening to it, you're like, what is this guy? This is
And
the
then
worst
you-
actor and singer I've ever heard.
Yes.
Possibly, yeah.
And he, in contrast to Betsy Joslin as Joanna, he sings it almost flat, which
Yes.
is just phenomenally cool for me. And this recording has, I've said it 18 times, Kiss Me Part 2, and maybe we'll play this tiny little clip.
This is a good time, yeah.
It is. It's my favorite 2 measures of any Sweeney Todd recording ever. It's at the very end. It's Joanna says, "I loved you even as I saw you, even as I." It does not matter that I still don't know your name. Like, they've met, love at first sight. They don't know each other's names, and he. The gentleman playing Anthony giddily says, "Anthony!" And she's, and just hilarity ensues. And Anthony, Todd, Anthony, Todd.
Let's
it's hysterical.
listen.
And I love the actress playing Joanna, Lauren Molina is her name. Her response, "Anthony?" It's like Justin Bieber or whomever is a person these days. It's giddy and it's hysterical. Roll clip.
Roll clip indeed.
Anthony! Todd, eh? Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Sunday.
Okay.
All right.
Give the woman a break.
Awesome.
Lady. She's been through a lot.
that.
Okay,
She has,
been through a
bless her.
lot.
I love that moment. It just fills my soul. 2023 recording. It's amazingly well sung across the board. You're not going to hear a better sung recording of Sweeney Todd. Incredibly recorded, incredibly mastered. It's crystal clear. Ruthie Ann Miles, Tony nominee for The Beggar Woman, is astonishingly good. And I can't tell you why. It's just something visceral and, vibey. She's incredible. The Anthony is awful. I can't also really put my finger on why. Jordan Fisher. I think he was in Evan Hansen, and
I know he's famous from something, but I didn't know.
I think it was Evan Hansen, and I seem to recall him getting good notices.
Right.
What made him
You
bad
didn't like
for you?
It was bland and it was flat.
Is it too poppy?
It was very poppy.
His voice is poppy.
I feel you, Joanna. I can't.
No
it's
thanks.
Just,
I agree. That's Scoopy.
Yeah, and Annalie Ashford, who I do love in what I've heard her in. Yeah. Back from Legally Blonde, she had tears coming out of her nose. Loved her.
Loved that.
Loved her as Dot in
I was going to say, have you seen that revival of Sunday
I've not seen it, but I've heard it.
Heard it, yeah.
Incredible.
It's quite good, yeah.
I was very excited to experience her rendition of Mrs. Lovett, but man, that accent makes the recording almost unlistenable for me. It's like
what a shame.
Community theater level bad, and that's giving community theater a bad name, comparing her accent to it. It's bad. It's inconsistent and it's bad. But gorgeous voice, great performer. Her Dot in Sunday in the Park is just out of this world, I think. So maybe it's better on stage. I don't know. But the Josh Groban of it all, I'm going to have a different opinion from you, Forrest. I like his voice quite a lot. Great performer, all the things. I think he's very effective as Sweeney because he's used to being right here in the mic and used to making very small adjustments, so he can do nothing and turn up the creepy by 15%, I think. And I don't know if that's saying it in a way that makes any kind of sense, but I think his history as a recording artist, being behind the mic, helps. And I also think, did we talk about this last time, or did I talk about it with somebody else? Stillness on stage and quiet and smallness on stage I find really effective. It doesn't always have to be about a huge overblown moment. And I think that maybe, and I haven't seen the production, so I'm just speculating here.
Right, same here.
His making small choices, even in a massive theater, could probably be effective because stillness and quiet and smallness can be as effective as something bombastic, in my opinion. So I think he's the best sung Sweeney, and I would go back to him to hear it sung properly.
Okay, so what's your answer for the disc, though? Which one are you taking with you?
That's what I was just about to ask, yeah.
Feet to the fire.
The original.
The original.
You agree.
Because of the raw, because of the gritty, because of the unhingedness of it all.
Because of the Angela.
Because of the Angela, it doesn't get better.
Stephanie, have you listened to the new cast recording?
Only bits and pieces.
You were going to go see it, right?
Yes, remind me.
I'm sorry to bring it up.
I'm still hurt. Yes,
sorry.
I could be totally filling you guys in.
I know, you could be giving us the
wish.
We're going to reschedule.
Sure.
Definitely.
When are we all going to go to New York together and see some shows? Wouldn't that be a blast?
Let's do it, because I saw an ad somewhere that you can get tickets to Merrily We Roll Along for $77.
Let's go.
I'm in.
There.
Are you going to be Charlie Kringus? I'll be Franklin Shepard.
Look at us. Here we are. How fun.
Lenny's like, I'm always Franklin Shepard.
And you wonder what if.
To close out this time we've spent with our feature musical, it's time for our if-then recommendations, where Lenny and Forrest give their recommendations for follow-up listening. Lenny, what do you think?
Seems that I can't have one answer for anything, so I'm going to give you two. My first answer is, if you like Sweeney Todd, you might like Jekyll and Hyde. They are maybe not of the same quality, but they are both epic and gothic and melodramatic and overblown and operatic and all of those good words, and Halloweeny, and it would be a great time in the theater. I also, for a deeper cut, which we strangely have already mentioned tonight, I would recommend Kander and Ebb's 2015 show, The Visit.
Well, there we go, yeah.
Because it is a also absurdist. The premise is ridiculous and crazy and terrifying, and it's a revenge story. And I don't want to say too much about it, because maybe we'll talk about it at a later time. I'm hoping. It's one of those shows that have been obsessed with for years and have had nobody to talk to about it, so I may rope you guys into
Let's
it.
do it.
It's
I'm there for
very
that.
cool story. I highly recommend it. And I think it's the last show that Fred Ebb had on Broadway. John Kander has had others or rehashed shows, but I think it's Fred Ebb's who was the lyricist of the team, his last effort on Broadway.
It's hard to tell any because they dragged that mantra out a couple times in a
know,
row. The
I
Scottsboro
know.
boys are like, this is Fred, the curtains, this is Fred's last show visit. Okay, the visit, this is really his last show.
No, really, guys, this one. Yeah.
I think it actually was this time. I know John Kander
think so,
had
yeah.
New York, with some new material. And
That's true.
I think there was
Fred
one
Ebb's
more.
lyrics were in there, though. So
That's
does that
true.
count?
So,
don't know.
I throw that out the window. Who knows?
I
We're going to
don't
be
know
hearing
either.
Fred Ebb for the next 50 years.
Sure.
Forrest, if then, what do you think?
If you enjoyed Sweeney Todd, you probably an opera maybe. I don't know any operas, but no. But
Pagliacci.
Pagliacci.
Yeah.
it always depends on how you came to Sweeney Todd and why you like Sweeney Todd, right? If you like it for Sondheim's musical complexity, then maybe you're looking for a show like Pacific Overtures or Company. You're going in that direction. If you like it for the horror aspects, there aren't a lot of shows that effectively use that melodrama. In fact, I know I'm actually very offended that Lenny said Jekyll and Hyde. Stephen Sondheim is rolling over in his grave because you directed people to Jekyll and Hyde, okay? Oh, gosh. But I mean, something like The Wild Party.
Okay.
Either version, I guess, that's kind of dark like that. The other shows, think of like Little Shop. They're a little too campy. Little Shop of Horrors, a little campy. Fan of the Opera, which Stephen Sondheim might also roll over his grave for that one. But, I mean, it does have those dark horror themes, if that's what you're looking for. Or even Carrie the musical. Pretty close to Halloween, okay?
Sure.
Want some blood?
Yeah.
Can't see Sweeney?
Yes,
Go see
please.
Carrie.
And now it's time for the Battle Royale portion of our show, where Forrest and Lenny take on a musical theater topic of their choosing to discuss and debate and delight us all with their wit and wisdom regarding all things Broadway. Keeping with the Sondheim of it all, we have decided to go with Best Opening Number of a Sondheim Musical. Lenny, you're up.
Okay, so a case could be made for several of the opening numbers from Sondheim shows for the best or the favorite or the whatever term we're using. I looked at Forum, I looked at Pacific Overtures, I looked at Assassins, and while the actual greatest is probably Into the Woods, probably without question.
Vigorously nodding my head, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 13-minute
Tepidly
thing.
nodding my head.
Genius. Oh,
Tepidly.
you're going to get a kick under the table.
It sets up every character, it sets up their themes, it sets up their musical motifs in 12 or 13
And a
minutes.
compact little
It's his
package
longest
is
Yes.
so
song.
genius.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
However, it may not be my favorite, or at least for the purpose of this question, it may not be my favorite. I'm going to go with the opening number from Company.
Good choice.
Thank you. I seem to think so. I am picking it because it's exciting. I'm picking it because it's groovy and a little funky and a little very late 60s, early 70s. I'm picking it because of the Burt Bacharach backup singers of it all that happen at the beginning of it. There's a frenetic energy and pace that kind of drops you into Bobby's New York and trying to be all things to all people with his group of good and crazy people, his friends.
Yeah.
I'm picking it because of the epic moment of Elaine Stritch hitting this super long note that goes
Just hear it.
flatter and flatter and flatter as it goes until the conductor just cuts her off.
Please.
It's amazing. It straddles the old school versus the new school, that 1970s kind of time frame where we were in both worlds of it all. It foreshadows a lot of what Sondheim was about to bring, stylistically and musically in all the ways, and it just kind of sets up a new generation of, or a new sense, a new something of what musicals could be. So I'm going with the opening number of Company.
All right. Thoughts, Forrest? Agree, disagree?
Let me tell you why Lenny is wrong. Okay, that's my
That's
opening
what
for
I
all of
want.
these.
Yes, please.
Lenny isn't wrong, let's say.
I love Company. I appreciate Into the Woods. That is, I think, his longest song that he ever wrote was
Probably.
that opening, that prologue for Into the Woods. If you take it all as
Interesting.
one song. But what I would choose, if I gun to my head, which one am I picking? I do love Pacific Overtures. That's one I debated on. It's like kind of a deep cut there.
Yep.
Forum Comedy Tonight is great. But Sunday in the Park with George from Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh, I was
So
going to say
good.
from the Frogs.
No, I just love it. And the couple of just great parts about the song, we could go talk about it all day, but it's establishing the themes of the show so quickly, both musically and dramatically. Musically, that musical pointillism is already in that song and the lead up. you're setting up the characters, George and Dot. Their relationship is kind of, you jump right into the story and you already know kind of how they are, how George is like a Pygmalion type of figure to Dot, and they're lovers, but they're also like the artist and the subject, so it's a strange relationship that you already see how it's going to fall apart later, right? It's just a fantastic song, and the way it builds and the lyrics, like, I'm imagining Hamilton, it's that type of lyric where it's like boom, 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 boom. She's like, there are worse things than this on a Sunday, so.
Let's listen to a clip of that here.
Yeah,
this is a good time to do that.
Listen to Bernadette Peters play. This is great.
Not even a nod, as if I were a tree. The ground could open, he would still say please. Never know with you, George. Who can know with you? The others on you, George. Before we get through, I'll get to you too. God, I am so hot. Well, there are worse things than staring at the water on a Sunday. There are worse things than staring at the water as you're posing for a picture after sleeping on the ferry after getting up at 7 to go over to an island in the middle of the river, half an hour from the city on a Sunday. On a Sunday. In the park with...
Don't move the mouth!
Yeah, that was amazing.
Love it.
Can listen to it all day long. So
Yeah.
for me, that's probably my favorite. It's a great song.
And see, here's the thing. There is no Forrest wrong, Lenny's wrong,
That's
because
true.
they're all
Honestly,
brilliant.
Yeah, we're
you
splitting
can't-
hairs. Yeah.
you,
A toast
Absolutely.
to Stephen Sondheim.
100%.
Okay, great.
Indeed. May he
I'll drink
rest
to that.
in peace.
Goodbye.
And now, sadly, our time with you, dear listener, has drawn to a close. Be sure to tune into our next episode where we'll be reviewing She Loves Me, a show that, was originally a financial flop, then a cult classic, and finally, the very first Broadway show ever to be live streamed. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Settling Scores, the musical theater podcast. If you enjoyed it, please like, rate, review, and most importantly, tell your friends about it. Until next time, this is Stephanie,
Lenny.
And Forrest.
all saying farewell.